Here I am.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a graduate architect from CCNY, City College of New York. Fortunate enough to land a job in 1974 with a company, and I'm with them still. Going to college, I sold real estate in the Bronx. So I had my real estate license I got when I was 18, and I've been working ever since then. And then I got this job as a staff architect for a parking and real estate company. And it just clicked, and I stayed with them forever. But now I am off on my own. I'm now an author, and I published my first book 2 months ago. Book, there it is. It's a real book. I just this week sold over 100 copies. But working with Adam was fun. I mean, it's grueling as a landlord. I wasn't the landlord, but I was representing the landlord, having to fight with a tenant, or argue with a tenant, or over silly things, whatever it is. It's always aggravating. But it was always fun with Adam. Thinking from the other day when we first spoke, I was thinking about this one tenant who moved into our building. And I did everything at that time to accommodate him and make sure he's comfortable. And I had all the tenants on the floor that he was with. They all had a good relationship. And I gave more than most landlords had. But this tenant decided he couldn't pay the rent in this big office he had there, which was fine. I said to him, you don't have to move out. I'll move you to a smaller office. It'll be much smaller than you have now, but if you can't afford to pay the rent. And he was already behind in rent. And he says, I'll move you to a smaller office and you can catch up little by little. That was the deal. Well, I moved him to the smaller office and he still didn't pay his rent. And then he moved out. All he had to do was say to me, we're going to work out some kind of program or whatnot. I apologize. You gave me I fixed up this new little office for him. It cost me money to put him in this new office because he couldn't afford the big office. So no matter what you did for this person, I told Adam about that, and we processed papers. And of course, the time came when we had our day in court. Well, a couple of days before we go to court, Adam says, Mark, I want you to bring everything, all your files. I go over the phone and I said, Adam, what do you mean by all my files? Well, everything related to this tenant, all the letters and correspondence and the lease and everything you have, plus plans of the floor and plans of the building and what you've done. He said, bring everything. I gathered everything in my office that day. I had a whole bunch of things on my desk. I said, gee, I'm not going to be able to carry this into the courtroom. Tomorrow I'm going to bring a suitcase with wheels on it, and I'll bring it to the court tomorrow, and Adam can see what he wants in all these files. Sure enough, I get to the court, go to the floor, get off the elevator. Adam was already there outside of the courtroom, and I'm walking with rolling this suitcase. I said, okay, Adam, I have everything. He said, oh, good. I said, you want to see? He said, no, I don't have to see. It looks like you brought everything. He said, wait till we get called in. When we get called in, you just roll the thing down the aisle, and we're going to sit at our table. He says, you just take the suitcase, you put it on top of the table, you start emptying things out. And then the court, it will begin. And I started doing that. And the judge was watching me unpack this suitcase. And he says, what's going on here? And Adam says, my client brought evidence that he'd like to present to the court. And the judge says, this isn't going to happen. Everybody out. I want to see the two attorneys. I didn't know what was going on. So I left. Everybody left. And Adam and the other attorney was there. And a few minutes later, Adam comes out and says, we settled, we won. That was it. And I thought Adam was a genius. That was genius. Bring everything. As hard as he had to really not threaten, but come across strongly, he was always calm, cool, collect, got his point across. And tenants were frightened of him because he didn't fool around. And throughout the whole thing, he tried to make it fun for everybody. Even the people who were suing, he tried to make everything comfortable for everybody. Adam is aggressive, but he never gets ruffled. He keeps it. And he could be aggressive, but he just stays on cue. That's Adam. What else can I say about him? I miss going to court with him. I hated going to court, but I miss going to court with Adam because it was always an experience. And that's the kind of guy he is. Oh, when we first sat down at that particular time, and the judge was watching me unpack the suitcase, the lawyer for the tenants shouts out, "This is a case of a big, rich landlord taking advantage of a small business kid just trying to start out." And Adam says, you can scream out an answer if you want at that. I said, what kind of kid? He's 42 years old. What kind of poor kid? He just has to pay his rent. And that was it. It was just, Adam said, yeah, you can shout out whatever you want. He comes across very professional. He's always well-dressed. And obviously he does it very well, so he can afford to be well-dressed. But he has good taste in clothes. He can afford to be well-dressed, but he can not know how to dress. He's a good dresser too. Tie, tight, shirt, very formal, very professional. He always looks very professional. And he always comes across very professional. That kind of frightens people who aren't paying their rent. Wow, this guy really knows something. And then they look at their attorney, who's some schmo, and they compare him to Adam. So right away they get a little nervous when they see Adam walking, because he's just cool, collected, walking in. He has a good posture about him, and he just walks in like he's confident that he's going to win, and the other side gets nervous when someone's very confident. So that's Adam. Another fun time is we had 8 tenants. We had little buildings in Manhattan that we wanted to vacate and do something with those buildings. And tenants were in rent control apartments, had lived there forever, paying very little rent. And we wanted to do something else with the buildings. And Adam, explained to me, you just can't have tenants move out. We just can't bully tenants. It's rent control, and we don't want to come across as a miserable landlord. So what we have to do is work with these tenants and relocate them, find them someplace else to live, offer them something, no matter what it is. You want to get them out of this building. You have another building on East Houston Street. Maybe you have apartments, put them in those apartments and subsidize the apartments and get them out of these buildings. Whatever. He gave me all kinds of alternatives, how to be respectful, because Adam is very respectful. It's not to be scared of him, but yet he's very respectful. And he actually went from tenant to tenant with me in the building. We knocked on dours and said hello. And I said, hello, my name is Marc Gellman. I'm with the company, and this is my attorney. Don't be frightened that he's the attorney. And Adam he was never intimidating, not frightening. And we would be invited in and talk to the tenant. Well, we'd like to take possession of this apartment, but you have the rights to live here. And Adam would tell the tenant their rights. He never held back their rights. He would explain what their rights were. And because of what their rights were, what we needed to do and what kind of agreement. We couldn't force them out, and he would never come across like that. And we made a number of agreements with the tenants, and they were happy and we were happy. Some wanted to be just bought out, give me X number of dollars. We had a fair amount that we bought them out, or worked on relocating them, where I worked with other real estate people. So he's a strong attorney to have, but he handles things properly, and he doesn't do anything that he's not supposed to do. I think it was very good when I first saw him talking to a tenant and telling the tenant their rights. And Adam said, I can give you it in writing. I can give you anything you want. But, he came across like he was telling them everything. And that's because he was telling them everything. If you're upfront and honest, you find out what's on their mind. And a lot of tenants tell us what was their mind and what they wanted to do, what we needed to do. And we were very successful. And that's all kind of Adam's personality. And he's a good guy. He's an all-around good guy.